Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji. The original living being. By him even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma Prochita Kaitravocha Paramo Nimatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapa Trayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagvatam Mahamani Krite Kim Vaparir Ishwaraha Sadyohidi Avarudyate Tra Kriti Bihi Sususubhistakshana. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are full and pure in heart. The highest truth is reality, distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam Sukumukad amrita dravya samyutam Pipata Bhagavatam rasam alayam Muhur ahorasika bhuvi bhavukaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice is already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hidyan Taksto Bhadrani Vidunati Suhitsatam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about him, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend, and purifies a devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, verse number 21. Pritir Ratri Srihit Putra Hataste Vigatam Vayam Atma Cha Charaya Grasta Parageham Upasase. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Your father, brother, well-wishers, and sons are all dead and passed away. You yourself have expended the major portion of your life. Your body is now overtaken by invalidity, and you are living in the home of another. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The king is reminded of his precarious condition, influenced by cruel time, and by his past experience. He should have been more intelligent to see what was going to happen to his own life. His father, Vichitravirya, died long ago, and he and his younger brothers were all little children. And it was due to the care and kindness of Bhismadeva that they were properly brought up. Then again his brother Pandu died. Then in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, his 100 sons and his grandsons all died, along with all other well-wishers like Bhismadeva, Dronacharya, Karna, and many other kings and friends. So he had lost all men and money. And now he was living at the mercy of his nephew, whom he had put into troubles of various types. And despite all these reverses, he thought that he would prolong his life more and more. Vidura wanted to point out to Dhritarashtra that everyone has to protect himself by his action and the grace of the Lord. One has to execute his duty faithfully, depending for the result on the supreme authority. No friend, no children, no father, no brother, no state, and no one else can protect a person who is not protected by the Supreme Lord. One should, therefore, seek the protection of the Supreme Lord, for the human form of life is meant for seeking that protection. He was warned of his precarious conditions more and more by the following words. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this is a warning not for only for Dhritarashtra, but for all of us. There's a saying in the Bible, dust thou art, and dust thou shalt become. So that's referring only to the body, not to the soul. So the body is made of earth, in which all the other elements are present. Water, fire, air, ether. And the body seems to be alive because the soul is present. But actually the body is dead. It's dead matter. The only reason it's alive is because of the presence of the soul and the supersoul. As soon as the individual soul leaves the body, it no longer is conscious, no longer acts, no longer feels things like pain or happiness or anything like that. So it's just a piece of dead meat. And therefore people either bury it, burn it, leave it outside so the dogs and jackals and vultures can eat it, or it's put in the ground and it decays and becomes dust eventually. So the body, minus the soul, is just dead matter. And as we get older, the body deteriorates. And there's so many different diseases that people get. And ultimately, old age is a disease because the body deteriorates. So, not only that, but Dhritarashtra, he saw his father die, he saw his brother die, he saw his sons die, and grandsons die. So what's the next one? Who's the next one that's going to die? Himself, right? So why should he continue to live in this illusion that, well, I made all these mistakes in the past, but I'm still like the king, and I'm being treated royally, and I'm getting good food, I have a nice place to stay, I'm given respect, so maybe I can make this my permanent position. No, it's not going to be your permanent position. It's just foolishness. So, and he had received so much kindness in his life. Business Dave protected him and his brother, and when they grew up, Business Dave continued to protect him and then protect his sons. But because that they were acting sinfully, what does that mean? Well, they were trying to strip Draupadi. They tried to kill the Pandavas on many different occasions and cheat them of their natural hereditary right to the kingdom. And they even refused to follow the instructions of Balaram, and ultimately they refused to follow Krishna's instructions. So they were acting sinfully multiple times, many, many times, not just once. Therefore, they were no longer protected by the mercy of the Lord. They were not acting like devotees. Like, for example, if there is a person who claims to be a devotee, or a brahmana, let's say, but they have respect for the deity, but not respect for devotees, then that person is not really a devotee. They're just acting like a devotee. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 11th verse, where it says, in the purport, Prabhupada writes that chapter 11th verse. Yeah, it says, Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as Paramatma, is situated in the moving and the non-moving entities as the Supersoul. So any neophyte devotee, that means like a Kanishta Adhikari, who simply gives his attention to the Archamurti, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect other living entities, is uselessly worshipping the form of the Lord in the temple. So, anyone who claims to be a brahmana, who seemingly is worshipping the deity every day, but does not, in the same way, respect devotees, is not really a brahmana, and is not really a devotee of high standing. It's a very low standing devotee. And such a person's association should be ignored. Should be, let's say, one should refrain from associating with such a person, because that person is showing by their behavior that they do not chant 16 rounds, they do not follow the regulative principles, and as a result, they do not respect the devotees. They might have, they worship the deity, but actually the worship of the deity is considered useless. Actually, Prabhupada uses the word useless. Let me read this again. He says, Jiva Goswami. Well, let me read more of it. Some of those who deride Krishna and who are infected with the Mayavadi philosophy quote the following verse from Srimad Bhagvatam 3:29-21 to prove that Krishna is just an ordinary man. Aham sarvesu bhutesu bhutatmavastita sada. The Supreme is present in every living entity. We should better take note of this particular verse from the Vaishnava Acharyas like Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, instead of following the interpretation of the unauthorized persons who deride Krishna. Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as Paramatma, is situated in the moving and non-moving entities as the Supersoul. So any neophyte devotee who simply gives his attention to the Archa Murti, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect other living entities, is uselessly worshipping the form of the Lord in the temple. There are three kinds of devotees of the Lord, and the neophyte is in the lowest position. The neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur warns that this sort of mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as Paramatma, everybody is the embodiment or the temple of the Supreme Lord. So as one offers respect to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and every body in which the Paramatma dwells. Everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected. So, if you know a pujari, it could be in this temple or any temple, who worships the deity, but yet is mean, insulting, and threatening, and generally unkind to other persons, not only devotees, but any other person, they are not actually a brahmana, and they are not actually qualified to worship the deity. Because worshiping the deity, the purpose is to please Krishna, and if one actually is advanced as a worshiper of the deity, they will see the same Krishna in the heart of every living entity. So the person who respects the deity and disrespects others has not actually achieved the position of a genuine worshiper of the deity. And their worship is considered useless. It doesn't matter if they're initiated first and second. What they're proving by their behavior is they don't actually follow the regulative principles, and they don't actually chant 16 good rounds a day. That neglect is the reason why people fall down in Krishna consciousness. They become neglectful of following all the rules and regulations. And one of the rules is to respect all living entities, not only human beings, but plants and animals and insects and so forth, because Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. So, someone like Dhritarashtra, who was trying to kill his own brother's children when he is actually the guardian of those children, who actually sits and doesn't say anything when his son and his son-in-law are trying to strip Draupadi in public, in front of so many people. He just sits there and doesn't say anything. That means he approves it. So such a person is extremely sinful. And therefore, he had to experience total devastation. All his sons dead. All his aspirations destroyed. Right? And yet, he has the nerve to accept the protection of Yudhisthira and be treated like a king and live under Yudhisthira's protection. That just showed how really blind. He was not only physically blind, he was spiritually blind. But his only good fortune was Vidura. Vidura came not because he wanted to live in the palace or enjoy, comfortable life. He came to convince Dhritarashtra to leave immediately and prepare for death. So this is the state of affairs of people who deviate from following the order of the Lord. And Vidura was sent by Krishna before the battle of Kurukshetra to talk to Dhritarashtra, because Krishna knew that he was preparing to go to war with the Pandavas. He was making those preparations. And Vidura came and spoke to him and told him, he said, look, it looks like you're preparing to go to war with the Pandavas. This is a very bad thing to do. The Pandavas are under protection of Krishna. He said, I know all these things, he said, but I cannot help myself. I'm determined to do this. So, he knew that he would displease Krishna by doing what he was planning to do, but yet he could not stop himself. This is an example of an adamant person who is determined to have sense gratification. Even though they know it's wrong, even though they know it's not pleasing to the deity, even though they're worshiping the deity, even though they have a guru, but they ignore the guru, they ignore the deity, they ignore Krishna in the heart, and they still continue to commit offenses. This is a sad state of affairs. And in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada writes also something very interesting. He says, 18th chapter, verse 73. And he says, let me just make sure about that. 59. It's 63, I'm sorry. It's right at the end. And he says, the Bhagavad Gita began with an inquiry of Dhritarashtra's. He was hopeful of the victory of his sons, assisted by great warriors like Bhisma, Drona, and Karna. He was hopeful that the victory would be on his side. But after describing the scene on the battlefield, Sanjaya told the king, you are thinking of victory, but my opinion is that where Krishna and Arjuna are present, there will be all good fortune. He directly confirmed that Dhritarashtra could not expect victory for his side. Victory was certain for the side of Arjuna because Krishna was there. Krishna's acceptance of the post of charioteer for Arjuna was an exhibition of another opulence. Krishna is full of all opulences, and renunciation is one of them. There are many instances of such renunciation, for Krishna is also the master of renunciation. The fight was actually between Duryodhana and Yudhisthira. Arjuna was fighting on behalf of his elder brother, Yudhisthira. Because Krishna and Arjuna were on the side of Yudhisthira, Yudhisthira's victory was certain. The battle was to decide who would rule the world, and Sanjaya predicted that the power would be transferred to Yudhisthira. It is also predicted here that Yudhisthira, after gaining victory in the battle, would flourish more and more because not only was he righteous and pious, but he was also a strict moralist. He never spoke a lie during his life. So, there's a lot more to this purport, but you get the idea. If you choose to be on the wrong side, you lose. And if you choose to be on the right side, you will flourish spiritually. So, the wrong side is worshiping the deity and insulting people. That's the wrong side. You'll lose. And the right side is worshiping the deity and seeing the deity in the heart of all living entities and offering the same respect to the deity on the altar, to the deity of Krishna in the heart of every living entity. That is real deity worship. And whoever's a pretender, pretending to worship the deity but being disrespectful to devotees and to other living entities, other people, that person is called Mityachara, the guru of illusion, or the expert in illusion. Not only they're cheating themselves, they're also cheating others by pretending to be a brahmana or a pujari, but actually they're a very low-class person. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Are there any questions? Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada.